Welcome to the Deep Dive. You are tuning into our analysis of Episode 5 of the Marketing in the Global Economy lecture series.
And today, we're zeroing in on something really critical.
Absolutely. Our focus is entirely on the most leveraged, consequential, and maybe sometimes terrifying element of the marketing mix, pricing decisions.
Yeah, it's where the rubber really meets the road.
Exactly. We've talked before about product, promotion, place. Those are all, well, ultimately investments, cost centers.
Right. They cost money.
But pricing,
Yeah.
this is the pivot point. This is really where strategy hits the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission today is to give you, the listener, a kind of comprehensive shortcut to the core academic ideas here.
We want to translate some of that maybe cold, hard math of profit drivers and elasticity.
Into actionable insights, yeah.
Yeah.
And also grapple with the complexities you face when pricing on a global scale.
Okay. And just to set the rigorous academic foundation for this discussion, I will read the provided background verbatim. Mark Oliver Presnick is the creator of the Pivotal Infinity Marketing Canvas and founder of Pivotal Thinking. He is Distinguished Professor of Marketing at Lübeck University of Applied Sciences in Germany, Honorary Professor at the New Delhi Institute of Management, a global thought leader at the LSE Academic Speakers Bureau, and co-author of several international bestsellers with Philip Kotler. He also serves on the advisory board of the United Nations World Food Program Innovation Accelerator, is a leadership coach and executive trainer, a TEDx speaker, and is recognized as one of the world's most influential voices in purpose-driven marketing, strategy, and leadership.
Thank you. That standard ensures we're really sticking strictly to the proven frameworks from the source material.
Right.
So today we're going to cover, well, quite a bit. Everything from the 4 essential components of price policy.
Its function is the ultimate profit driver, which is key.
The mechanics of demand elasticity, how market structures influence things.
The various practical pricing methods companies actually use.
Yeah, and finally, those specific challenges, the structural hurdles you face when pricing products across international borders.
Yeah, including that critical issue of price escalation. We'll definitely unpack that. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. We really need a clear definition. Price policy. It's not just the list price you see on a tag.
Right, it's broader than that.
It's the whole strategic framework.
Yeah.
It defines the conditions under which your goods and services are offered to the market. It's comprehensive.
So when we talk about these strategic components, what are we actually looking at? The sources mentioned 4 pillars, right?
That's correct. 4 key things that define the transaction conditions. First, obviously the actual price.
Okay, the number itself.
Second, the rebate structure. How do you incentivize volume or loyalty or maybe specific behaviors?
Got it.
Third, the payment conditions. Or your terms say 30 days, 60 days. Is it cash on delivery? This really matters, especially in B2B.
Okay. And fourth?
And fourth, the availability of credit. Do you offer financing? All 4 of these variables need to be thought through and aligned in your policy.
Okay, so price, rebate, payment conditions, credit. That makes sense.
And strategically, pricing serves a kind of dual function. On one hand, it's a really potent competitive tool.
How so?
Well, you use it for differentiation, sometimes for attack to gain share, but it's also fundamentally a communication device.
Communication, you mean signaling.
Exactly.
Right.
The price immediately positions your product or service in the marketplace. It signals everything from, say, luxury to basic utility or accessibility.
Right. But the reason we call this the deep dive is we really want to focus on what matters to, the executive suite, the bottom line. Price is defined as the amount of money charged, yes. But the source material emphasizes it's more than that. It represents the sum of all the values consumers give up.
To gain the benefits of using that product or service.
Yeah.
It's about perceived value exchange.
Okay, and here's the part that I think is often maybe overlooked, but is just profound.
What's that?
It's the simple reality of the marketing mix. Price is the only element that actually produces revenue.
That's absolutely critical. Think about it. Product design costs money. Logistics, place, that costs money. Advertising, promotion, all cost money.
They're all expense lines, investments you have to make.
Exactly. Price is the single multiplier that brings the money back into the system.
Which makes it, arguably, the most sensitive and important dial a manager can turn.
Without a doubt, it's got incredible leverage.
Okay, let's unpack that leverage, because this, I think, is the fundamental aha moment for anyone studying business.
Right. The core question this line's pose.
Yeah, what 10% change gives you the best profit increase? Is it boosting volume? Is it raising the price? Is it cutting variable costs or cutting fixed costs?
Okay, let's use the baseline example provided in the sources. It really grounds this in clear numbers.
Sounds good.
So imagine a company, fairly simple structure, price P is 10, quantity X sold as 100 units. Variable cost VC is 6 per unit, and fixed costs, FV, are 300.
Okay, let's quickly calculate that baseline profit. Total revenue is price times quantity. So 10 times 100, that's 1,000.
Right, and total costs, you've got variable costs, which are 6 times 100 units, so 600.
Plus the fixed costs of 300.
So total costs are 900.
Okay, revenue 1,000 costs 900. So our baseline profit is 100.
Exactly. Profit is 100. Now, let's apply a 10% favorable change to each of those elements one by one and see what happens to that profit.
Okay, where should we start? Maybe the cost side. That often feels like the easiest place to look for improvements.
Let's do it. So a 10% decrease in fixed costs, we drop them from 300 down to 270.
Okay, so revenue is still 1,000, variable cost still 600. Fixed costs are now 270. Total cost is 870.
Which means the new profit is 1,000 minus 870. That's 130.
Okay, so profit went from 100 to 130. That's an increase of 30, or a 30% increase in profit. Pretty solid.
Solid work, yeah. But cutting fixed costs can be tough, things like rent or salaries.
True. Okay, next cost, variable cost. Let's say a 10% decrease there. That's a big operational win, usually.
Right, so variable unit cost goes from 6 down to 5.4. We still sell 100 units.
So the total variable cost drops from 600 to 540. Fixed costs are back at the original 300.
Total cost now 840. Revenue is still 1,000.
So the new profit is 1,000 minus 840. That's 160.
We went from 100 profit to 160. That's a 60-point jump. A 60% profit increase.
Okay, better than fixed costs. Variable cost reduction is powerful.
Very powerful, definitely. Second only to price, as we'll see.
All right, let's look at the demand side. Volume. A 10% increase in quantity sold. So from 100 units up to 110.
Okay, so revenue now is price 10 times quantity 110, which is 1,100.
But remember, variable costs also increase because we sold more. So variable costs are now 6 times 110 units.
Which is 6 costs remain 300. Total costs are 960.
So new profit is 1,100 revenue minus 960 costs. That's 140.
From 100 to 140, that's a 40% profit increase.
Better than fixed costs, but less impact than cutting variable costs. And getting volume gains like that consistently is hard.
Notoriously difficult, yes. Okay, now for the finale, the price lever.
A 10% increase in price. So we move the price from 10 up to 11.
Right. Quantity, let's assume for this step, stays at the original 100 units.
Yeah.
So revenue becomes 11 times 100, 1,100.
And crucially, what happens to costs?
Well, assuming no volume change yet, variable costs are still 6 times 100, so 600. Fixed costs are still 300. Total costs are 900.
So the new profit is 1,100 revenue minus 900 costs. That's 200.
Well, let that sink in.
Our baseline profit was 100. We just went to 200.
That's right. A mere 10% price improvement.
Resulted in a 100% profit increase.
It doubled the profit.
Wow. Okay, that's the quantitative proof right there. Price improvement is, well, undisputed as the single most effective profit driver.
It just mathematically dominates the others in this typical scenario.
It
requires the least sort of physical effort changing a number.
To yield the highest financial return. That's why pricing strategy has to be managed at the highest level, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's too important to leave to chance.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? With great leverage comes great risk.
Exactly. Which brings us to the next point in the slides. Contribution sensitivity.
Right. If a small price change has that much power, we need to understand the volume implications. How much can we afford to lose if we raise price? Or how much must we gain if we lower it?
Let's analyze the risk of a price cut first. The slides suggest looking at a 20% price decrease.
Okay, so taking the price from 10 down to 8. Variable cost, VC, stays at 6.
Right. Now remember our initial contribution margin per unit. It was price 10 minus VC 6, which is 4 per unit.
And we sold 100 units, so the total contribution was 4 times 100, which is 400. That's what covered fixed costs and provided the 100 profit.
Precisely. Now, if the price drops to 8, what's the new contribution per unit?
Price 8 minus VC 6. It's just 2 per unit. It got cut in half.
Exactly. So to maintain that original total contribution of 400,
we need the new volume X times that $2 contribution to equal 400.
So 2 times X equals 400. X must be 200 units.
200 units. We have to double our sales volume.
Well, 100% increase in quantity.
Just to break even on the contribution we had before. We haven't even made more profit yet.
That's the danger. If you achieve anything less than doubling your sales with that 20% price cut, you are actively destroying contribution dollars.
That is a staggering hurdle. Very few markets would respond that dramatically.
Right. Now let's look at the reverse scenario. It demonstrates the power of protecting your margin. A 20% price increase.
Okay. Price goes from 10 up to 12. Variable cost stays at 6.
What's the new contribution per unit?
Price 12 minus VC 6.
Mm-hmm.
That's 6 per unit. Much healthier.
Okay, now, to maintain that same initial total contribution of 400.
We need the new volume, X times that $6 contribution to equal 400.
So 6 times X equals 400. Do the math. X is 66.67 units.
So wait, we started at 100 units. We only need to sell about 67 units now.
That's right. The company can afford to lose roughly 1/3, 33.3% of its original sales volume.
Dropping from 100 down to about 67 units.
And still bring in the exact same total contribution dollars to cover fixed costs and profit.
That comparison is just critical for any manager, isn't it? A 20% price cut demands an almost impossible volume gain,
while a 20% price increase allows for a significant, often manageable volume loss, while keeping the finances healthy.
Which absolutely drives managerial behavior towards protecting and, if possible, growing price.
And this inherent difficulty in getting those huge volume gains, well, it drives a key tactic we see all the time, especially in fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG.
Ah, you mean the hidden price increases.
Exactly. Since consumers react, often quite negatively, to obvious sticker price hikes.
Companies get creative to capture that essential pricing margin without making it too obvious.
The most common way is shrinkflation. We've all seen it.
Yeah, the package gets smaller, but the price stays the same, or maybe even goes up a tiny bit.
The source material gives some pretty stark examples. One case where a package volume dropped from 200 grams down to 165 grams.
Okay, let me think. That's a 35-gram difference on a 165-gram base. That's like a 21% reduction in product for maybe the same price, or effectively a price increase per gram.
The calculation in the slide shows it as an effective 17.5% price increase per gram. Almost impossible for a shopper to calculate that quickly in the aisle.
Right, and the laundry detergent example.
That was even more blatant. A package marketed as a jumbo pack, 3 liters for 3.99 euros, doing 27 loads.
Okay, sounds like a deal maybe.
Compared to a smaller regular size, 1 liter for 1.85 euros, but doing 28 loads.
Wait, the smaller one does more loads.
Yep. And when you calculate the price per load, the so-called jumbo pack was 114.3% more expensive per wash.
Wow. They're banking on the consumer just seeing the big box and the word jumbo, not doing the unit cost math.
Precisely. They focus on shelf price perception, not underlying value.
And even retailers do this, right? Reducing yogurt pack sizes from 300 grams to 200 grams.
That's effectively a 50% price increase per gram if the price stays the same.
These examples really underscore that smart pricing strategy is often about managing consumer perception, maybe even calculation inertia.
To capture those vital marginal gains that has such a huge impact on profit.
Okay, so we've established the immense power of price on the bottom line, but now we have to confront the main constraint, don't we?
Which is?
The customer's reaction, how the market responds.
Exactly. This moves us from our internal costs and profit calculations to the external market dynamics, and that starts with the demand curve and price elasticity.
The demand curve, basically a map of the market's response, right? It shows the quantity the market will likely buy at different price points.
That's the idea. And theoretically, this relationship is inverse. As price goes up, demand generally goes down.
We can visualize it as a line sloping downwards. The slides give a linear formula. P sub P minus alpha times X.
Right, where P sub P is the theoretical maximum price anyone would pay, essentially the y-intercept.
And X is the quantity demanded, and alpha determines the slope, how sensitive demand is.
And the rate of that change, how steep that curve actually is, that's what price elasticity of demand measures.
It tells us how responsive, how stretchy demand is to a change in price.
Precisely. The formula is key. It's the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price.
And this formula gives us a number, E, that helps managers segment how their product reacts.
Right. If the absolute value of that elasticity number, E, is less than 1, we call that inelastic demand. Demand hardly changes, even with a noticeable price change. Think essentials, maybe like gasoline in the short term, or strongly branded products people are loyal to.
Okay, and if E is greater than 1?
Then we have elastic demand. Demand is highly sensitive. Even a small price change can cause a really big shift in the volume sold.
That sounds like products with lots of substitutes, or maybe commodities.
Exactly. If you raise the price just a bit, customers easily switch to a competitor.
Okay, the source material has a calculation example using a specific demand curve. P equals 7, 0.5x. How does that help connect elasticity to actual revenue?
It's a great illustration. By calculating elasticity at different points along that demand curve, we can see where total revenue, price times quantity, is maximized.
So if we're pricing high on that curve, say P6, the calculation shows elasticity is around 3.7. That's much greater than 1.
Right, highly elastic territory. So what does that tell a manager?
Well, if demand is elastic, a small price decrease should lead to a large quantity increase.
Large enough, in fact, that the increase in quantity more than offsets the lower price per unit. So total turnover actually goes up.
So in the elastic zone, lowering the price can actually boost your total revenue. That's the sweet spot for promotional pricing, maybe.
It can be, yes. But what happens if we price low on that curve? Say P2.
Okay, the calculation there shows elasticity drops way below 1 to around 0.3. That's inelastic.
So now if you reduce the price even further.
Demand is inelastic, so the quantity increase you get is minimal. It's not enough to compensate for the lower price per unit.
Meaning your total turnover actually starts to decrease.
Ouch. So dropping your price when demand is already inelastic is basically financial self-sabotage. You're just giving away margin.
Exactly. The managerial takeaway is crystal clear. Understand where you are on that curve. Don't cut prices into the inelastic zone.
And that example shows the turning point where elasticity is exactly 1 is where total revenue is maximized. In this case, at P4 and quantity 6, yielding a turnover of 24.
Finding that point, or at least knowing which side of it you're on, is crucial.
But how do managers figure this out in the real world? It's not like customers come with elasticity labels.
No, it's tricky. The sources suggest managers use a combination of approaches.
Like what?
Well, you can get qualitative insights from expert interviews, people who know the market well.
Okay.
You can run controlled experiments, maybe testing different price points in different comparable markets or online.
A/B testing for price, essentially.
Kind of, yes. You can also use large-scale customer surveys, asking willingness to pay questions, though what people say and do can differ.
True.
And perhaps the most reliable method is careful analysis of actual buying behavior, tracking sales data immediately after a real price change happens in the market.
Looking at real-world results. Okay. And what factors influence whether demand is elastic or inelastic?
Several key things managers need to watch. The most obvious is the existence of substitutes. More substitutes means higher elasticity.
Makes sense. If there are lots of alternatives, people switch easily.
Also, the transparency of price changes. Can customers easily see and compare prices? Online markets tend to be more transparent, often leading to higher elasticity.
Okay. What else?
Two factors are a bit more subtle but important. First, habitual buying. If people buy your product out of routine without much thought,
They might not react much to small price changes. Demand becomes more inelastic due to inertia.
right. Second, the manufacturer's image can play a huge role.
How so?
Sometimes, perhaps counterintuitively, a price increase might be interpreted by consumers as a signal of a quality increase.
So the price hike doesn't hurt demand as much as you'd expect because people think they're getting something better?
Exactly. It can actually buffer the expected demand drop. It depends heavily on the brand's positioning and perceived value. And finally, just the general degree of price awareness in the market.
Okay, so elasticity isn't fixed. It depends on these factors.
Definitely. Now, let's connect this individual demand idea to the broader market structure. We need to briefly touch on classic pricing theory.
Okay, the textbook models.
Right. Classic theory often starts with some pretty strong, idealized assumptions about a perfect market.
Like what? What are those assumptions?
Four main ones, usually. The maximum principle, meaning both customers and companies act perfectly rationally to maximize their own benefit.
Okay, no emotional decisions.
Second, infinite reaction velocity. Everyone reacts instantly to changes, no time lags. Third, product homogeneity. All products in the market are identical, no preferences.
No brands, no features differentiating them.
And fourth, full market transparency. Everyone knows all prices and all information instantly.
Sounds unrealistic.
Highly unrealistic in most cases. But it gives us a theoretical baseline. When these conditions do hold, you get the textbook definition of free competition, or perfect competition.
And what's the pricing logic there?
In perfect competition, the market price, P sub M, is set purely by the intersection of the overall market supply and demand curves. It's called the equilibrium price, P sub G.
So no single company sets the price.
Exactly. A single company in this market is purely a price taker. They have virtually no ability to set a different price.
Why not?
Because their individual demand function is effectively a horizontal line at that market price if they try to charge even a tiny bit more.
Their sales drop to zero instantly because buyers can get the identical product elsewhere at the market price.
Right. This means their demand is infinitely elastic. E equals negative infinity. Their only real decision is how much to produce up to their capacity limit. Profit maximization comes from efficiency, not pricing power.
Okay, that's one extreme. What's the opposite?
The opposite theoretical extreme is the Cournot monopoly calculus. Here, a single company does have control. They can choose either the price or the quantity they want to sell.
And how do they decide?
The calculus uses that basic downward-sloping demand curve again, let's say P equals ABX. They also consider their costs, particularly marginal cost.
And the key insight for a monopolist.
The crucial rule, the optimum condition for profit maximization, is setting output where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. MR, MC, or E equals K in the slide notation.
So the revenue from selling one more unit equals the cost of producing that one more unit.
Precisely. Finding that point tells the monopolist the ideal quantity X opts to produce. And once they know the optimal quantity, the demand curve tells them the corresponding optimal price, P opt, they can charge.
We don't need the exact algebra, but the principle MRMC is the core takeaway for monopoly pricing.
Absolutely. It's the fundamental logic. However,
real markets are rarely either of these extremes.
Exactly. Most markets are imperfect. Companies work hard not to be in perfect competition. They use the marketing mix, branding, advertising, quality, features
to create preferences to make their products seem different and better.
Right. This effort to create preference is what the economist Gutenberg called the acquisitive potential.
The stronger your brand and marketing, the more you can pull away from that purely competitive price-taking scenario.
And this ability to create preference leads to a more realistic model of demand, which Gutenberg observed in experiments, the double-bended price-demand function.
Double-bended? What does that look like?
Imagine a demand curve that's steep at high prices, then flattens out in the middle range, and then becomes steep again at low prices. It's sort of S-shaped, but rotated.
Okay, so a flat section in the middle.
Yes. That central slider section is called the monopolistic area.
Why monopolistic?
Because within this price range, the company can act like a local monopolist. Price changes don't cause a huge drop in sales volume. Demand is less elastic here.
Precisely because of the customer preferences and loyalty the company has built.
Exactly. But if the company raises its price too high, pushing it out of that flat section onto the upper steep part,
or lowers it too much onto the lower steep part,
they hit the atomistic area. Here, demand suddenly becomes highly elastic again. Even small price changes lead to dramatic shifts in sales volume.
Because at those price points, customers stop seeing the product as unique and start comparing it directly with substitutes again.
That's the idea. The perceived preference breaks down outside that central range.
So the crucial managerial implication here is
build strong customer relationships. The tighter your connection with customers through brand equity, loyalty programs, great service, the wider that central, flatter, monopolistic gap becomes.
Giving you more flexibility, more room to adjust prices without losing tons of customers.
Exactly. Your strategic goal is to operate and keep your price movements within that relatively inelastic, monopolistic gap that you've earned through your marketing efforts. Fewer substitutes also widens this gap. Conversely, faster customer reaction speeds tend to flatten those atomistic sections, making them even more sensitive. Okay, let's shift gears now from the theory and market structure to how companies actually practically set prices day to day.
Right, the methods they use. The sources seem to group these into three main categories.
That's right. Broadly speaking, we have cost-based, competitor-oriented, and marketing-oriented pricing methods.
Let's start with cost-based. That seems like the most fundamental, maybe the oldest approach.
It often is. It relies entirely on the company's internal financial data. To use it, you first need to understand your costs.
Okay, the basics. Fixed costs, things like rent, salaries that don't change directly with how much you produce or sell, at least in the short term.
Correct. Then variable costs, raw materials, packaging, maybe direct labor costs that do fluctuate directly with your production volume.
And total costs are simply fixed plus variable costs.
Exactly. Now, within cost-based pricing, there are two main methods to differentiate. The first is full cost pricing.
Full cost, meaning you account for everything.
Pretty much. You calculate the total cost per unit, including an allocated share of the fixed costs, plus the direct variable costs, and then you add a standard profit markup percentage.
So the example in the slides. Direct costs, £2, plus allocated fixed cost, £2, gives a full cost of £4 at a 10% markup.
And your selling price is £4.40. It's straightforward, ensures you cover all your costs, plus a profit margin.
But it completely ignores what the market is willing to pay or what competitors are doing.
That's the major drawback. The alternative cost-based method is marginal cost pricing.
Marginal cost, so just the cost of producing one more unit.
Essentially, yes. This method typically only includes the direct variable costs in the calculation, plus a markup. Fixed costs are ignored for the purpose of this specific pricing decision.
So using that same example, marginal variable cost is £2 at a 10% markup of $5.20.
And your price might be set at £2.20, much lower than the full cost price.
When would a company use marginal cost pricing? It seems risky, like you're not covering all your overheads.
It's often critical for specific tactical situations. Think about having spare production capacity. You get a chance for a large one-off export order.
Okay.
The offered price might be below your full cost, but if it's above your variable cost, £2 in the example,
then accepting the order at, say, £2.20 still contributes £1.20 per unit towards covering those fixed costs, which you'd have to pay anyway.
Exactly. It's better to get some contribution than none, especially if the capacity would otherwise sit idle. It can also be used defensively in price wars.
But I have to push back slightly there. For our audience of VA students and executives, isn't there a danger here? If a company always relies on marginal cost pricing,
aren't they just participating in a race to the bottom? Maybe covering immediate costs but never generating enough profit to reinvest, innovate, or even cover fixed costs long term.
That is the absolute essential management challenge and the risk you highlight. Marginal pricing must be seen as a tactical floor, a short-term tool, not a long-term strategy.
Right.
If it becomes the default way you price, it usually signals a failure to build sufficient market preference. You haven't created that wider monopolistic gap we talked about.
So it's a sign you haven't differentiated enough.
Often, yes. It's necessary sometimes during downturns, low capacity use, or intense competition. But it should never be the strategic default because it fundamentally undervalues your product and your fixed investments.
That's a crucial distinction. Okay, regardless of which cost method you use, there's a fundamental planning tool involved.
The break-even analysis.
Yes, this calculation is non-negotiable. It determines the sales volume, the number of units you need to sell, at which your total revenue exactly equals your total costs.
The point where you've covered all your fixed costs and finally start making actual profit on subsequent sales.
Precisely. It's the critical threshold.
And the formula is pretty straightforward, right?
Yes. Break-even volume equals total fixed costs divided by the unit contribution margin.
And that unit contribution margin is just the unit price minus the unit variable costs.
Correct. Knowing this break-even number tells you the minimum volume you must achieve just to keep the lights on. It's absolutely fundamental for any new product launch or major pricing decision. You have to know your hurdle.
Okay, that covers cost-based approaches. What about the second category? Competitor-oriented pricing.
Here, as the name suggests, the focus shifts entirely outside the company onto what rivals are doing.
The most common form seems to be going rate pricing.
Yes. This is where a firm bases its price largely on what competitors are charging, rather than on its own costs or demand.
You see this a lot in industries with few players, oligopolies, selling fairly similar products.
Exactly. Like steel, paper, fertilizer, basic chemicals. Companies tend to charge the same price because deviating either up or down can be very risky and might trigger a price war, which hurts everyone, so they follow the leader or the market average.
The other form mentioned is competitive bidding.
Right. This is common for winning contracts, often large government or industrial projects. Multiple suppliers submit confidential sealed bids based on detailed specifications.
And typically, the lowest bidder wins, assuming they meet all the other requirements.
Generally, yes. This turns pricing into a game of prediction. You're trying to guess your competitor's cost structure and how low they might bid, so you can bid just slightly lower but still make a profit. It's high stakes.
Okay, now the third and perhaps most strategically sophisticated category, marketing-oriented pricing.
This approach centers pricing decisions firmly on the customer and the broader marketing strategy.
So less about costs, less about competitors, more about value.
Exactly. A key concept here is pricing based on the value to the customer. What is the product or service actually worth in the customer's eyes?
So if the customer perceives, say, $1,000 in benefits or solve problems from using your product,
then your price should aim to capture a significant portion of that perceived value, regardless of whether your internal production cost was $50 or $500. You price based on the value delivered.
This often involves leveraging price-quality relationships, doesn't it?
Yes, using price itself as a signal. A high price can communicate superior quality, exclusivity, or prestige, which in turn helps justify the high margin. Think luxury goods.
We also see product line pricing. What's that about?
This is about setting prices strategically across a whole range of related products. Think good, better, best versions.
Okay.
Managers set price steps between the different items in the line. The goal isn't just to maximize profit on each individual item, but on the total product line, often trying to encourage customers to trade up to higher margin versions.
Right, setting the price points to make the next level up seem attractive.
Exactly. And finally, under marketing-oriented pricing, we absolutely have to revisit those fascinating anomalies, the price psychological effects.
Yes, the situations where the standard demand curve seems to go haywire, where demand might actually increase with price.
Right. These are crucial in certain markets, especially luxury and niche segments. The first one is the bandwagon effect.
Bandwagon, like jumping on.
Precisely. Demand for a product increases simply because lots of other people are buying it. Popularity itself drives more demand. Think fashion trends, hit songs, popular restaurants. Being in validates the purchase.
Okay, then there's the opposite.
The snob effect.
Yeah.
Here, demand actually declines if too many other people start demanding or using the product.
So this applies to things valued for their exclusivity, their uniqueness.
Exactly. Limited edition art, certain high-end collectibles, bespoke items.
Yeah.
Part of their value comes from the fact that not everyone has them. High practical value is often low, but the exclusivity value is high.
And the third one, the most counterintuitive.
The Veblen effect, named after the economist Thorstein Veblen. This is where customer preference for buying a product increases as a direct function of its price.
So the higher the price, the more people want it.
For certain goods, yes. These are called Veblen goods or goods of conspicuous consumption. Think hypercars, haute couture, extremely expensive watches.
The high price itself is the main signal of status and exclusivity.
That's the core of it. If the price were lower, the demand from the target audience might actually fall because the status signal would be weaker.
Wow. These effects really confirm that price is never just a simple number, is it? It's loaded with psychological meaning and symbolism.
Absolutely. It's a complex signal in the market.
Okay, let's bring in the dimension of time now. The sources distinguish between static and dynamic pricing.
Right. Static pricing is essentially setting a price at a specific moment and, well, leaving it there for a while, maybe based on cost plus or matching a competitor at launch.
Pretty straightforward, but maybe not very adaptable.
Exactly. Dynamic pricing, on the other hand, is explicitly time-based. Prices are adjusted over time, responding to changes in demand, supply, competitor moves, or the product lifecycle stage.
More flexible, more optimized.
That's the goal. The basic dynamic possibilities outlined include premium pricing, consistently high, promotion pricing, temporary reductions, and the two classic strategies for launching new products.
Skimming and penetration.
Correct. Skimming involves starting with a high price, and penetration involves starting with a low price.
And the choice often depends on your promotional strategy too, right? The slides show that 2x2 matrix comparing price, high-low, versus promotion spending, high-low.
Yes, that matrix is a useful framework for launch strategies. Let's walk through the quadrants.
Okay, top right, high price, high promotion.
That's called rapid skimming. You launch with a high price to capture maximum margin from early adopters who are willing to pay.
And you back it with heavy promotion to build awareness quickly and justify that high price.
Right. This works well for innovative products where you want to recoup R&D costs fast, maybe before competitors jump in.
Okay, what about high price, low promotion?
That's slow skimming. Still aiming for high margins, but you spend less on promotion.
When would that make sense?
Maybe if the target market is relatively small, aware of the product category already, and there aren't many immediate competitors, you can milk the margin without the big ad spend.
Got it. Now the other side? Low price, high promotion.
That's rapid penetration. You come in with a low price to grab a large market share quickly.
And you promote heavily to drive mass market awareness and trial.
Exactly. This is often used when the market is large, very price sensitive, elastic demand, and you want to build volume fast, perhaps creating a barrier to entry for competitors.
And the last quadrant, low price, low promotion.
Slow penetration, still using a low price to attract price-sensitive buyers.
But you don't spend much on promotion. Maybe you rely on word of mouth or distribution muscle.
Could be. This might be chosen if the market is large and price sensitive, but maybe the potential profit margins are thin, making heavy promotion too costly or risky. You aim for gradual adoption based on price appeal.
Okay, that matrix clarifies the launch options nicely. The sources also show another grid, right? Comparing price against value.
Yes, the 3x3 pricing and value proposition matrix. It maps price, high, medium, low, against perceived customer value, high, medium, low. It helps you visualize your market positioning.
And where do you want to be on that grid?
Well, the clearly desirable positions are in the top row, high value, either premium product, high price, high value.
Where the high value justifies the high price. Defensible.
Or, interestingly, superb value, low price, high value, offering high perceived value at a low cost. Think IKEA or Southwest Airlines, perhaps, relies on efficiency and scale.
Okay. And the places to avoid at all costs.
Definitely the bottom right corner. The rip-off, high price, low value, that's just unsustainable. Customers will figure it out and flee.
And probably tell everyone they know.
Absolutely. Also dangerous is overcharging, high price, medium value. You might get away with it for a while, but you're vulnerable to competitors offering better value. These positions generate ill will.
Good framework for checking your own positioning. Now let's dig into the specific tools or instruments companies use to implement these strategies, starting with price differentiation.
This is a really powerful tool. It's the practice of charging different prices for essentially the same product or service based on different customer segments or circumstances.
Why do that? Why not just have one price?
Because different customers have different willingness to pay different price elasticities. Price differentiation allows you to capture more value from those willing to pay high,
While also capturing sales volume from those who would only buy at a lower price without having to lower the price for everyone.
Exactly. You get additional sales volume and potentially additional margin from the high-paying segments.
Okay, how do companies actually differentiate prices? The sources list several ways.
Yes, 4 key forms are highlighted. First, differentiation by time of purchase.
Like early bird discounts for events or cheaper movie tickets for matinees?
Precisely. Or off-season travel deals. Your pricing based on when the purchase is made or consumed, tapping into the time sensitivity of different customers.
Second, differentiation by geography.
Right. Charging different prices in different regions or countries. We see this with software, cars, even basic goods like the aspirin example in the slides.
Driven by local purchasing power, competition, regulations, distribution costs.
All of the above. The Hertz car rental example, much cheaper in Florida than in Greece, for the same car class illustrates this perfectly.
Third, differentiation by user type or buyer characteristics.
This is very common. Think student discounts, senior citizen prices, business versus leisure airfares, academic versus commercial software licenses.
Even the example of different landing fees for noisy versus quiet aircraft, that's user differentiation too.
Yes, pricing based on the characteristics or behavior of the user.
And fourth, differentiation by quantity purchased.
The classic volume discount, very common in B2B. The price per unit goes down as the order size increases. Think software licenses per user. The more users, the lower the per user cost. It incentivizes larger orders.
Okay, so time, geography, user, quantity. But for this to actually work well, what conditions need to be met?
3 crucial requirements, according to the slides. First, the different customer segments must actually have different price elasticities. If everyone reacts the same to price, there's no point differentiating.
Makes sense.
Second, the segments must be identifiable and addressable. You need to be able to target the different prices to the right groups without leakage.
So you need a mechanism to give students the discount, but not everyone else.
Exactly. And third, and this is very important culturally, the differentiation scheme must generally be perceived as fair by the customer base.
Fair. How do you define that?
It's tricky. But if customers feel that different prices are arbitrary, manipulative, or exploitative, it can cause significant backlash and damage the brand. Think about the uproar when airlines were caught charging different prices based on browsing history. It has to feel justified.
Right, perceived fairness is key. Okay, another instrument mentioned is price bundling.
Yes. This is offering a combination of products or services together at a single package price.
Like cable TV packages or mobile phone contracts that include the handset and the monthly service?
Exactly. The idea is often to increase the perceived value, simplify the purchase decision, and sometimes well, sometimes, to make it harder for customers to compare the prices of the individual components. It can increase overall purchase likelihood.
And finally, rebate systems. These seem quite complex.
They can be. Rebates are essentially reductions from the list price, offered after the purchase, or based on meeting certain conditions over time.
The slides distinguish between rebates at the reseller level and the customer level.
Right. At the reseller level, you have functional rebates given to wholesalers or retailers for performing certain tasks like stocking, promoting, or selling your product.
Okay, compensating the channel. And at the customer level.
It gets more varied. You have quantity rebates based either on a single large order or cumulative turnover over a period.
Rewarding volume.
Time rebates, like introductory offers for new customers, pre-order discounts, seasonal sales, end-of-life clearances.
Guide to timing.
Then things like discount tickets or coupons, reimbursement schemes like mail-in rebates, and of course loyalty rebates designed to reward repeat purchases and lock in customers.
So a whole toolkit of ways to adjust the effective price paid beyond just the initial list price.
Exactly. These instruments provide flexibility in executing the overall pricing strategy.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground on pricing within a domestic market. But things get even more complicated when companies go global, right?
Absolutely. All the concepts we've discussed, costs, competition, value perception, elasticity, they all vary significantly from country to country.
So the first big strategic decision for international pricing is basically how much to adapt.
That's the core choice. Do you aim for price standardization, trying to apply the same price, or at least the same pricing model or logic, across different countries?
Which sounds simpler, maybe good for brand consistency.
It can be simpler, administratively, yes, and it avoids the gray market problem we'll touch on. But the alternative is often necessary: price differentiation.
Meaning you actively adjust your prices based on local market conditions, costs, regulations, and all those factors.
Exactly. The slides emphasize that the choice between standardization and differentiation depends heavily on various structural factors, both internal to the firm and external in the market.
Let's break those down. What are the key internal factors affecting international pricing decisions?
Well, first are the overarching firm-level factors.
Mm-hmm.
What are your corporate objectives? Are you aiming for global market share or maximizing profit in specific key markets?
Your competitive strategy matters too, presumably. Are you a cost leader or a differentiator?
Definitely. Also, your overall product positioning, where your production facilities are located, which affects base costs and shipping, and your chosen market entry modes, exporting, is very different from having a local subsidiary or joint venture.
Okay, those are firm level. What about product factors?
Also crucial. Where is the product in its product lifecycle PLC stage? It might be mature in your home market, but brand new in an emerging market, requiring different pricing.
Its place in the overall product line, its specific features and perceived quality, and its underlying cost structure all need to be considered in the context of each specific international market.
Right. Those are the internal considerations. But often, the external factors are even more challenging.
Like what? What's pushing prices around from the outside?
Well, there are broad environmental factors. Government influences are huge: price controls, tariffs, subsidies, consumption taxes like VAT.
Local inflation rates can erode margins quickly. Currency fluctuations are a massive headache for international pricing.
Absolutely. A sudden currency devaluation can flag out profits or make your product uncompetitive overnight. And the general stage of the business cycle in that country matters too.
Okay, those are macro environmental factors. What about specific market factors in the target country?
Critically important.
Yeah.
You have to understand local customers' perceptions of price and value, and, very practically, their ability to pay. A price that's mid-range in Germany might be luxury in another country.
The nature of competition is key too. Who are the local players? What are their objectives and strategies? Are they aggressive on price?
And related to all this is the constant threat of gray market appeal.
Explain that again. What is the gray market?
It's when your product is bought in a low-price country through authorized channels.
And then unofficially resold by independent intermediaries in a high-price country, undercutting your official distributors there.
Exactly. If the price difference between, say, country A and country B is large enough to cover shipping and a profit for the arbitrager, you'll likely see gray market imports emerging in country B.
Which can really disrupt your pricing strategy and channel relationships in that high-price market.
Absolutely. So the threat of the gray market often forces companies to keep their international prices within a narrower band than local conditions alone might suggest, just to discourage it. It limits differentiation.
Okay, this leads us to the final really major challenge highlighted: price escalation. This sounds bad.
It can be a huge barrier to exporting successfully. Price escalation refers to the phenomenon where the final selling price to the end consumer in the export market ends up being significantly higher than the domestic price.
Not necessarily because of higher profit margins, but because of the accumulation of extra costs incurred through the international distribution channel.
Precisely. It's a stacking effect. Let's walk through the layers as shown in the slides.
Okay, where does it start?
It starts with your basic ex-works. Price, the price leaving your factory door.
Then what gets added?
Immediately, you add international shipping costs and insurance to get it to the border of the importing country.
Then the import process kicks in.
Right. The importing country usually imposes tariffs or customs duties, often calculated as a percentage of the landed cost, including shipping.
So the tax is on the price plus the shipping cost.
Often, yes. Then, on top of that cumulative value, local taxes like VAT, value-added tax, or GST, goods and services tax, are typically applied.
Another percentage layer.
And we're still not done. Now the product enters the local distribution channel. The importer needs their markup. The distributor or wholesaler adds their markup. The final retailer adds their markup.
Wow, so each step adds a margin, often calculated on the already inflated cost from the previous step.
Exactly. It's this cumulative stacking, shipping, tariffs, taxes, multiple channel markups that causes the final consumer price to escalate dramatically compared to the original ex-works price.
Which makes it incredibly difficult to compete on price against local manufacturers who don't face most of those extra international costs.
Precisely. That's why understanding and actively countering price escalation is essential for exporters.
So what can companies do about it? The sources list some tactics.
Yes, 4 main approaches are suggested. First, rationalizing the distribution process.
Meaning cutting out some of those layers.
Exactly. Shortening the channel. Maybe bypassing the importer or wholesaler and going more directly to retailers, or even direct to consumers if feasible. Fewer intermediaries mean fewer markups.
Okay, second tactic.
Lowering the export price from the factory. This means the exporting company deliberately accepts a lower initial profit margin on its export sales.
To absorb some of those downstream costs and keep the final consumer price more competitive, it's a strategic sacrifice of margin for volume or market access.
Right. Third, a more drastic solution, establishing local production of the product within the foreign market.
Building or acquiring a factory there.
Or licensing production to a local partner. This completely eliminates the international shipping costs, tariffs, and often currency risks associated with exporting. It fundamentally resets the cost base for that market.
A big commitment, but potentially very effective. And the fourth tactic.
This one requires significant bargaining power, pressurizing channel members to accept lower profit margins.
Basically telling your importer, distributor, or retailer they need to cut their markup to help keep the final price competitive.
Yes, forcing them to share the burden. This is obviously difficult unless you have a very strong brand or market position that gives you leverage over your channel partners.
These countering tactics aren't just minor tweaks, then. They involve fundamental strategic decisions about distribution, manufacturing, and channel relationships.
Absolutely. Fighting price escalation is crucial for maintaining competitiveness and achieving success in international markets. It has to be actively managed. #TagOutro. So we've covered a lot of ground today on pricing decisions. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has, from understanding price not just as a number, but as the only actual revenue generator in the marketing mix.
To that really stark quantitative proof. That 10% price improvement delivering a 100% profit improvement in our example, it really highlights the leverage.
Definitely the #1 profit driver. We then looked at the immense risk of price cuts versus the relative safety of price increases through that contribution sensitivity analysis.
And the crucial role of understanding demand elasticity, where you sit on that curve and how market structures, from perfect competition to Cornell monopoly and Gutenberg's more realistic double-banded function, shape your pricing power.
And we translated that theory into practice, didn't we? Looking at cost-based methods like full versus marginal costing, the importance of break-even analysis.
Competitor-oriented approaches like going rate pricing, and the strategically vital marketing-oriented methods focusing on customer value and psychological effects like Veblen and Snob.
Then we moved into dynamic pricing, launched strategies like skimming and penetration, and the tools like price differentiation, bundling, and rebates.
And finally, we tackle the complexities of international pricing, the internal and external factors, and that critical challenge of price escalation and how to potentially counter it.
It's a huge topic, really touching every part of the business.
It really is. So perhaps the provocative thought to leave you, our listeners, with is this. We've seen the incredible power of even small price increases and the tactical, sometimes hidden ways companies try to achieve them, like shrinkflation.
Yeah.
Given that power, but also living in today's world of instant price comparison and very high consumer awareness, how can companies evolve beyond just tactical, hidden increases?
You mean find a more sustainable approach?
Exactly. How can they develop sophisticated, maybe more transparent, ethically defensible, long-term pricing strategies that still leverage that power to maximize contribution, but do so without alienating customers or collapsing that valuable monopolistic gap they've worked so hard to build through branding and quality?
That balance, harnessing the leverage effectively and fairly without triggering a massive backlash, that really does feel like the core challenge, the future of pricing strategy.
Indeed.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into pricing decisions. It's been incredibly insightful.
If you want to explore the frameworks, the data, the concepts we discussed today in more detail, we certainly invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel of Professor Mark Oliver Opresnik.
And next time on the deep dive, we'll be moving to the third P of the marketing mix: marketing, communication, and promotion decisions. We look forward to having you with us then.